My aunt always had this mysterious way about her, like she was keeping a dozen secrets locked away behind her gentle smile. I never really paid much attention to it growing up. She was just my aunt, the one who always seemed to know more than she let on, the one who dressed in a way that turned heads without trying, the one who carried herself like she belonged to a different world than the rest of us. I thought she was just eccentric. But looking back, I realized there were always little hints that she had plans for me, plans I never could have guessed until the day they began to unfold right in front of me. It started so simply. My parents had to leave town for work longer than usual this time. They trusted my aunt to take care of me since she lived only a few streets away and always treated me like her own child. I didn't mind. She had a way of making her home feel like a safe haven, though there was always something slightly unsettling about how her eyes seemed to study me, like she saw pieces of me that I didn't even know existed. On the first night I stayed over, she made dinner, and while we ate, she asked me questions I wasn't used to answering. She didn't ask about school grades or chores. Instead, she asked how I felt being me. She asked if I ever pretended to be someone else, if I had dreams where I looked in the mirror and saw a different face staring back. I laughed it off at first, confused and embarrassed, but her expression stayed calm, almost knowing, as if my answers only confirmed something she already suspected. I thought she was just being philosophical. I had no idea she was testing me. The next day, while I sat in the living room, she brought out an old box. It was heavy, wooden, with brass corners that had tarnished over time. She set it down with a deliberate motion, as if she had waited years for the right moment to reveal its contents. I asked what was inside, but she only smiled and said, "You'll see." She opened it slowly, and what I saw inside didn't make sense to me at first. Folded fabrics, cosmetics, jewelry, shoes, things that clearly didn't belong to me. My aunt reached in and lifted a dress, the kind you'd expect to see at a formal dinner, shimmering under the dim light of the room. She held it up against me with a strange seriousness in her eyes. I wanted to laugh, to ask her what kind of joke this was, but her tone stopped me cold. She said, "You've been hiding pieces of yourself, whether you realize it or not. It's time we bring them out." My stomach twisted. I told her she was wrong, that I wasn't hiding anything, that I was fine the way I was. But she didn't argue. She just looked at me like she could see through all the words I used to shield myself. She whispered, "Sometimes, the person you think you are is only a fraction of the truth." That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to the way she looked at me, the weight in her words, the strange certainty that she knew something about me I didn't know myself. It was unsettling and strangely comforting at the same time. The next morning, she called me into her room. Spread across the bed were outfits of every kind, some simple, some extravagant. She didn't give me a choice to walk away. Instead, she told me I'd be wearing one. I felt cornered, confused, even betrayed, but something deep inside me, a part one had always silenced, was curious. She chose for me a simple dress, soft to the touch, with colors that seemed to glow against the sunlight. She told me to try it on. My hands shook as I held it. Every voice in my head screamed that this was wrong, ridiculous, humiliating. But another voice whispered, "What if?" When I finally put it on, my aunt didn't laugh, didn't tease. She adjusted the straps carefully, brushed out my hair, and stepped back like an artist admiring a painting she'd just finished. She said softly, "See? You fit into this more naturally than you think." I couldn't look at myself in the mirror at first. But when I did, something inside me shifted. It wasn't that I looked like someone else, it was that I looked like a version of me I had never dared to imagine. A me that didn't feel clumsy or invisible. A me that startled me with how real it looked. My aunt's eyes softened. "This is only the beginning," she said, almost like a promise. My chest tightened. I didn't know if I should feel afraid or grateful, but I knew one thing for certain: whatever her secret plan was, it was changing everything I thought I knew about myself, and there was no going back. I thought wearing that dress once would be the end of it, like some strange experiment my aunt had decided to put me through. But she didn't stop there. The following day, she brought out more things from the wooden box, Not just clothes, but little accessories, scarves, bracelets, hair clips. She told me each one had belonged to people in our family who had chosen to live in ways that didn't always match the expectations placed on them. She said the box was full of stories, not just fabric. I didn't understand why she was telling me all this, but the way she spoke made it feel like I was being initiated into something bigger than myself. That morning she asked me to sit by the window where the sunlight hit my face. She opened a small makeup case, and before I could protest, she began brushing something across my cheeks, dabbing colors with a precision that felt both frightening and gentle. I froze, not sure if I should stop her, but there was something calming in the way she worked. My reflections slowly began to shift again. At first, it felt like a disguise, like she was trying to erase me and draw someone else instead, but as the process went on I realized she wasn't hiding me at all, she was showing me. When she stepped back and handed me the mirror, my breath caught in my throat. I had never seen that face before, but it didn't feel like a stranger's. It felt like the mirror had stopped lying for once and finally told the truth. I wanted to deny it, to push the mirror away and pretend nothing had changed, but my aunt's voice was steady as she whispered, "Now you're beginning to see what I've seen all along." I asked her what she meant, why she was doing this, and her answer shook me more than the reflection staring back. She said, "Your parents don't know. They don't see it, but I do. And you deserve to know who you really are before the world forces you to be something you're not." My heart pounded. I wanted to demand proof, to tell her she was making all this up, but a part of me knew she wasn't lying. It was like she had peeled away something I had buried so deeply that I had almost forgotten it existed. That night I sat awake in her guest room staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every look, every detail. Questions spun in my head. Was this really me? Was she trying to help or manipulate me? Why did it feel both terrifying and liberating? I couldn't answer any of them, but I also couldn't deny the strange pull inside me, as if I was finally standing on the edge of something that had been waiting for me all along. The next few days blurred together. Each morning she introduced something new, walking in heels, styling my hair differently, speaking with a tone that softened certain edges I never noticed before. She never forced me, but her presence was persuasive, almost magnetic, as if she knew I wouldn't resist for long. Every time I thought about saying no, that quiet voice inside reminded me how right it felt, how different the world seemed when I allowed myself to follow her lead. But the more I leaned into it, the more afraid I became of what would happen when my parents returned. They would never understand. They expected me to be someone specific, someone simple, someone I wasn't sure I could still be after everything my aunt was showing me. I tried to tell her this fear one evening, hoping she would reassure me or stop the whole thing, but she only smiled that same mysterious smile and said, "They don't need to understand yet. Right now, this is only between you and me." Her words gave me comfort and fear all at once. Comfort because it meant I didn't have to explain myself yet, but fear because I realized this wasn't just a passing game to her. She had a plan, something she hadn't revealed fully, and I was walking straight into it without knowing the ending. One evening, after another transformation session, she took me outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that made everything look unreal. She told me to walk down the street beside her, dressed and styled in the way she had crafted. My chest tightened as neighbors glanced our way, but no one pointed, no one laughed. Some even smiled, as if I was just another person passing by. That moment hit me harder than anything else. For the first time, I wasn't hiding and the world didn't collapse. It just kept moving, and I kept walking. My aunt squeezed my hand and said, "Do you see now? You're stronger than your fear." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was tight with a mix of pride and panic. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a secret that, once fully revealed, could change my life forever. And still, I had no idea what my aunt's real plan was. The night after that walk, I couldn't shake the feeling that my aunt was pushing me towards something larger, something she still hadn't confessed. I replayed her words over and over, trying to pull meaning from every glance and pause. The box of clothes wasn't random, and the way she spoke about our family's history made me suspect this plan of hers had been in motion long before I stepped into her house. I just didn't know if I was the center of it, or merely a piece in some story she wanted to rewrite. The next morning, she sat me down at the kitchen table. There was no makeup, no clothes laid out this time. Just her, staring at me with a seriousness that made my stomach knot. She said, "You've probably been wondering what all of this is for." My voice caught as I nodded. I was afraid to hear the answer. She leaned forward and lowered her tone, almost like she was afraid someone might overhear. "When I was your age, I went through the same thing. I tried to ignore it, to hide from it. But hiding only made me miserable. I had no one to guide me, no one to tell me it was okay to be more than what people expected. I promised myself that if I ever saw the same struggle in someone else, I wouldn't let them go through it alone." My chest tightened. I didn't know whether to feel angry that she had pulled me into this without asking or grateful that someone finally saw what even I couldn't name. Before I could answer, she pulled out an envelope from a drawer. Inside were photographs, old and faded. At first, I didn't recognize the faces, but then I realized one of them was her, dressed in ways I had never seen before, smiling with a freedom I had never associated with her. She looked alive in those pictures, unburdened. She pointed at them and said, "This was me, when I stopped pretending." The photos felt like a confession, proof that she wasn't making up a story just to drag me along. But it also terrified me, because suddenly this wasn't about her imagination, it was about legacy. She wasn't just teaching me, she was passing something on. That evening, she asked me to sit in front of the mirror again. She didn't rush. She styled my hair slowly, brushed each strand carefully, as if the ritual itself mattered more than the outcome. Then she said something that froze me. "Tomorrow, you'll come with me. There's someone I want you to meet." My heart pounded. I asked who it was, but she didn't answer. She only told me to trust her. The next day felt like walking into the unknown. She dressed me carefully, not in something too extravagant, but in clothes that still made me look different enough that I didn't recognize myself completely. Then she drove me across town, to a small community center tucked between old shops. My hands trembled as we stepped inside, because I didn't know what I was about to face. Inside the center, a group of people were gathered, laughing, talking, sharing stories. At first, I thought they would all stare at me, but they didn't. They welcomed me like I belonged, like I wasn't a stranger at all. My aunt introduced me simply as someone who is learning to see themselves. The phrase lingered in my mind. Learning to see myself. I didn't know if that was true yet, but hearing others share their experiences made something inside me shift again. They spoke about fear, about hiding, about the relief of finally being seen. Every word echoed the feelings I hadn't dared to name. It was overwhelming. I felt exposed, but also less alone than I had ever felt in my life. Afterward, as we drove home, I sat in silence, staring out the window, my thoughts spinning. My aunt didn't pressure me to talk. She only said, "Now you know you're not the only one." That night, I broke down in her living room. The weight of everything, the mirror, the clothes, the stares I had imagined, the acceptance I had felt, all of it came crashing down. I told her I was scared, that I didn't know who I really was anymore, that part of me wanted to run back to the safety of pretending. She pulled me close and said gently, "It's okay to be afraid, but don't mistake fear for truth. Fear is only the wall standing between you and yourself." Her words struck deep. I realized her plan wasn't to turn me into someone else. It was to force me to stop running, to face the truth I had buried even from myself. I didn't know if I was ready. I didn't know if I ever would be. But as I sat there, trembling and uncertain, I also knew this journey had already started, and there was no way to undo it. The days that followed felt heavier, like every moment carried a weight I wasn't used to bearing. My aunt didn't push me into new outfits right away. She let me sit with what I had seen and felt at the community center. But the quiet made my thoughts louder. I couldn't escape the mirror in my mind, the reflection I had tried so hard not to see. Each time I looked at myself in the bathroom or caught my shadow on the wall, I felt torn between two truths, the one I had lived all my life, and the one my aunt had uncovered, like a hidden note pressed between old pages. I wanted clarity, but instead I was drowning in questions. Then one evening, my aunt finally revealed the part she had been holding back. She called me into her room where the wooden box sat open again. This time, there was something new inside, an envelope with my name written across it. My hands shook as I picked it up. Inside was a letter, written in my aunt's looping handwriting. It wasn't long, but every word hit with force. She wrote that she had seen me struggling for years, even when I thought I was hiding it well. She wrote that she knew how isolating it could feel to never match the picture people expected of you, and that her plan wasn't just about clothes or makeup. Her plan was to give me a chance to live without lies, to see if I could step into the world and survive as the version of myself I had buried away. She ended it with a single line that I couldn't stop reading over and over. This isn't about making you into someone else, it's about showing you who you've been all along. I set the letter down, my throat burning. I wanted to deny it, to tell her she had misunderstood me completely, but my heart betrayed me. Deep down, I knew she was right. All the fear, the tension, the strange relief I felt when I dressed differently, it wasn't random. It was the truth pressing against the walls I had built around it. My aunt walked over and placed her hands gently on my shoulders. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "we're going further. You'll see what I mean." I barely slept that night, my mind racing between terror and a flicker of excitement I didn't want to admit. The next morning, she dressed me carefully again, but this time with more detail than ever before. She chose clothes that fit perfectly, styled my hair with precision, and applied makeup with a steady hand that transformed my reflection completely. When she was finished, I stared at the mirror and hardly recognized myself. I looked like someone who had stepped out of a life I hadn't lived yet, someone with a calm strength in their eyes. My aunt didn't smile this time. Instead, she said, "Now you're ready." Ready for what? I didn't know, and she refused to answer. We drove again, but this time not to the community center. Instead, we arrived at a small gathering at someone's house. My chest tightened as I realized what she had done. She hadn't just prepared me in secret, she had arranged for me to step fully into this new self in front of people who would only know me this way. The fear was unbearable. I wanted to run, to hide, to scream that this wasn't fair. But when the door opened and warm faces greeted me without suspicion, when they asked my name as if the version they saw was the only one that had ever existed, something inside me cracked open. For a few fleeting hours, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't lying. I was simply existing, and no one questioned it. I laughed, I talked, I listened, and every moment felt like breathing for the first time after holding my lungs tight for years. On the drive home, I sat in silence, my hands trembling against my lap. My aunt finally spoke. "You see now. You're not invisible. You're not broken. You're not trapped. You're allowed to be." Tears burned my eyes, and I whispered the only truth I could manage. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." She glanced at me with that same calm certainty she had carried since the beginning and said, "You don't have to know yet, but you will." When we got home, I sat with the letter again, reading it under the dim lamp in the guest room. Her plan hadn't been about control or forcing me into something I wasn't. It had been about unlocking a door I had been too afraid to open on my own. Still, questions swirled. What would happen when my parents returned? What would happen when the world outside wasn't as kind as those smiling faces had been? Could I keep living like this, or would I crumble under the pressure? I didn't have answers. I only had the letter, the mirror, and my aunt's unshakable belief in me. And as much as it terrified me, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: my life would never return to what it was before. The secret was out, and there was no way to lock it back in the box. I stared at my reflection one last time before bed. For the first time, I didn't look away. I didn't flinch. I just stared, until the fear and doubt twisted into something else entirely. Not peace, not yet, but the beginning of it. Then my aunt's voice called softly from the hallway, her words sending a chill through me. "Tomorrow, the real plan begins."